empowerment. Let us show the way. Let us light the torches and let us show people that we are ready to empower and to lead. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrow. And ladies and gentlemen, we will go straight into our program for this evening. And to bid us welcome, I would like to invite our first presenter, and that is young Miss Vilma James, who is a member of the United Workers' Party Youth Arm. Vilma. A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone who is here today and who is tuning in on the live. You being here today says a lot. Your being here means that you have recognized that things are not good in this country and we the people deserve better. We the people of St. Lucia deserve and demand transparency, a better governance, and improved circumstances for all our citizens. And today, we will hear various voices or speakers who will be discussing various issues which is affecting us in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vilma. And may I also state that Vilma is a member of the grocery branch as well. I was told I had to say that. So thanks for the opening remarks and our welcome. I want to extend a special welcome to those who are watching via live stream, especially those in the diaspora who are always with us and keep a close tab on what is going on in our home country, St. Lucia. Now, talking about what's going on in our home country, St. Lucia, we know that these days we are in dire straits. High cost of living, high crime, high unemployment, never mind the figures that they tell you, a high level of corruption. Everything that ought to be down is up. High rate of homicide. And so our Prime Minister continuously tells us that things are okay. And they even shamelessly put on a march of progress. Well, we must confess, when we hear the kind of corruption that is taking place and the kind of money involved, we know that some people are making progress. But we are concerned about the nation, we are concerned about our people, and they certainly aren't making progress. Because at the end of the day, when we have billions of our citizens' resources going down the drain, or rather going to persons unknown until now, we know we have a major problem. And among our major problems, I mentioned crime, the issue of crime. But you do not hear anything from our leaders as far as that is concerned. And I always say, if you do not have the legitimacy to speak on a subject, then you have to remain quiet. So that tells you why the government is remaining quiet on the subject of crime. And so I will call back to the podium another young person to address you. And he led us in prayer. And of course, perhaps when he speaks to you, you'll find out why we need all the prayers that we can get in this country of St. Lucia. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome back to the podium, Mr. Joshua Harrow.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Now, I want to take a more conversational approach. Can I do that this evening? Yeah. Because crime, when you hear about crime, you see the statistics, you see the figures, but you never hear about the solutions. We always complain about our young people engaging in deviant behaviors, but we never hear any solution from the government. You have a minister responsible for national security, a minister responsible for crime prevention, a minister responsible for home affairs, but yet the home is dilapidated. Our country is in a crisis where we don't know what's going to happen next and what's happening to our young people. You mean to tell me that we are surpassing all records of criminal activity? Remember when we were in power? Remember what it was like when your streets kind of felt a little bit more safer, right? Now it feels like every week, every turn, every section that you look, you're hearing a gun, you're hearing a stabbing, you're hearing a shooting. How do you feel about that? It's a scary situation for any young person, myself included, as some of the highest rates of incarcerations are young men, the highest rate of homicides is young men, the highest rate of suicide is young men, but yet the young men are always being cast aside, whether you look at the education system, youth development, or any activity like that. We must address the situation at hand. We must look at solutions in our education system, after school program, mentorship programs, development activities. We must look at ways to facilitate activities within our system that promote development amongst the young men. It is unfair that we speak so ill of the youth, but we make no effort towards them. How do you ask for our support when it comes to your development in terms of your party, and we feel like we're just tokens being used for your advantage and then forget about us later? We wonder, what about the future of St. Lucia? The future is now. It is present. But the present seems to have no future. Many people watch for their pockets and their own development rather than development of St. Lucia. I remember on a very important show, Newsmaker, a young gentleman came on to speak about the issues of crime and violence when it comes to young people. And he articulated some points that I find that really hit home for us, especially when it comes to the family. You see, in socio, I learned that the family, especially in the Marxist perspective, consists of three institutions: family, school, and religion. Our young people's homes, we don't know what they're going through at home. Some of them feel neglected. Some of them feel abused. Some of them feel abandoned. So what do they use? They use school. Our education system does not facilitate their development, doesn't facilitate any initiatives and activities to promote them. They feel abandoned. And religion, oh my goodness. It feels like a conflict more than a comfort. And our young people tend to run away from the church rather than to embrace it. So now the three institutions that are responsible for the development, they're running away from. So what's next? You mean to tell me there are young people in gangs because they feel more at home in gangs than in their own households? What are we doing for that? What are we doing to keep our young people occupied? What are we doing to provide solutions for them and their development? A lot of talk, no action. Papi show. You understand? And that's all it is. Papi show. So rather than be another person who comes and just sits here and rants and raves and say, oh my God, St. Lucia, crime situation is out of hand, I provided you with some solutions. Because united we stand, divided we fall. So rather than come here and be another person on the platform just advocating for change, I'm suggesting them. So I hope my warnings and my suggestions are taken into advance. I hope that the people are listening. I hope that you understand that you have a responsibility in your household. You have a responsibility in your schools. You have a responsibility in your church. You have a responsibility in your communities to help develop the young people so they stay out of criminal activities. Each one of us must stand united and take a stand against the injustice that is happening. Because if we do not, we as a nation will fall. There is no unity amongst us anymore. We must stand united. We must light the torches. We must make the way. We are the truth. We are the light. We are St. Lucians. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrow. You heard it from the young people themselves. And of course, I just want to repeat a point that resonated with me. You know, a lot of talk, no action. Now, if we cannot get action from our government, I think it is time for us to take some action. And I want to remind you that 2 Sundays ago, there was a massive meeting by the United Workers' Party on the boulevard. And what did the leader of the opposition, the leader of the United Workers' Party, and member of parliament for Miku South tell us? He gave the government some ultimatums. Among them, that we want the price of gasoline to be brought down, We want the 2.5% levy to be removed. We want something to be done about crime. Okay? I want the minister of CIP to be sent home and the CEO of the CIP unit to be sent home. I don't know what else you want, but if we all want those things, we have to take a stand and let the government know that enough is enough and that we can't take no more, and we want an end to it. And if they do not bring an end to it, by the 1st of November, we are going to bring an end to them through protest action to let them know that we are not going to take it any longer. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is always nice and refreshing, despite what is said about the youth, to know that there are young people who actually care about the development of their country. And there are young people who are prepared to get involved in the electoral process. There are young people who are actually interested in taking a stand for their future and that of their country. And that we, those of us who are a little more advanced, a little less young, are not alone. Because at the end of the day, while we fight for our country, we are fighting for ourselves. But more than that, we are fighting for the young people of our country, since they are the future of our country. However, we must strike the balance, because there are those of us who have been there, who have some more experience, and who knows, those of us who know, where to go, how to do it, give the guidance, provide the leadership in some cases. And so I want to call on one such person who has been there, who can provide us with some guidance and, speak in an authoritative voice as to some of the things that is happening in the country. So I want to call now on a former member of parliament for Castries Central, a former minister of foreign affairs, and she too wants to lend her voice on a subject that Harrow just discussed there, the issue of crime. And so I want to welcome to the podium Mrs. Sarah Flood-Bobre, who will speak on crime and social programs. Now, I want you to take note of the fact that we are not just merely criticizing, we are making suggestions in terms of solutions. So, Ms. Bobre, please welcome to the podium.
Thank you very much, Spider. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone in the diaspora. Good evening, everyone at home, probably sitting in your living room, maybe lying in your bed and listening to us this evening, talking about a really, really important subject of making our communities safe again. Now, everyone at home, I imagine I'm speaking not just to United Workers' Party supporters, I'm speaking to all of St. Lucia, because we recognize we have a problem. I think across the board, United Workers' Party, St. Lucia Labour Party, no P, the one thing we all recognize, we have a crime problem in this country. And I think we can all, if we are objective and fair, recognize that what we are doing is not working. Because day by day, there is more crime, and we seem to forget about crime because there are so many murders, so many homicides. We're not even talking about all of the other crimes. That while these crimes don't kill people physically, they kill people emotionally. There are a lot of us out there who have been raped, who've been abused, who've been assaulted, who've been battered. And we're walking around and we feel lost. Even if we are still alive, we are lost. Because crime has robbed us of something very deep and very important. Our peace, our joy, our broken homes, our broken families. So we are in a real crisis situation in St. Lucia. And I do want to speak to all of us collectively, but I would also like to speak to each one of us individually. we are at a point where we need to have a sober reflection, meaning let us dig deep and think, how can we solve this problem? And that means we must look for real solutions. We must not throw out a solution because we don't like the person who suggested it. The time has gone for that. Now, I am not going to speak on the short-term measures that need to be taken. I'm not going to spend the bulk of my time speaking on that. I want to focus on speaking on some of the solutions that can happen in the medium to long term. But before I go there, I do want to say just a little bit about the short term, because when you have a problem, when you have a wound or a cut that's bleeding, you got cut at home, a bad cut, and you go to the hospital, the first thing the doctor is going to do is stop the bleeding before he or she can address the wound. The bleeding needs to stop. So, there is an urgent need for the criminals to know who is in control. The problem needs to be arrested. The cap needs to be put on. The bleeding needs to stop immediately so that the real problem can be addressed. And that is where we have a problem. The government cannot stop the bleeding. The Prime Minister has already told you. His father was a police officer. He's not a police officer. He has already said anybody who can do the job, anybody. If you can do the job, let me know and I will give you the job. So, for example, so it doesn't matter how much someone tells you they care about you. Show me you care. And this government can say, Philip J. Pierre can tell us at nights the thing he worries about is crime. Thank you, sir, for worrying, but worrying is not enough. We need a solution. So that is why government has come in. Government cannot do. Government needs to get out and let a government that can do get in. So that's as much as I will say for the short-term solution. The wound is bleeding. The bleeding needs to stop. And if you don't have a competent doctor to stop it, it will not stop. And guess what? You know what will happen if the bleeding doesn't stop? People are dying, and that's what's happening. So I leave that there. We will have to take the necessary action to get this government out of office and put a government that can do. So I want to talk about the medium to long term. Now, I had a quick chat with someone today and they said, the government hasn't had a consultation. We don't need any government to have any consultations. We have had enough consultations on crime. We've had enough reports and suggestions coming from civil service, coming from the police officers going way back decades. Come on. There is not one suggestion regarding crime that has not yet been made. Go and dust all those reports off the shelves. Go and find them. When they threw our recommendations in the dustbin, go back and take it from the dustbin. Go back and take the recommendation that the leader of the opposition sent to the Prime Minister that was thrown in the dustbin. Go back and get it. And all of the solutions you read on the St. Lucia Times, you read on the Loop News, everywhere, St. Lucians are making suggestions. On Newspin, the most monitored talk show, suggestions are coming out of St. Lucians all the time. We have made all the suggestions. They have been on all the consultations. I said before in a previous forum where I was that the government should get a team of people. I'm not talking about this government. Peace, you pass a fait. You just pass a fait. So I'm saying what needs to be done is that all of those reports, all those suggestions, get 1 week, get a good team of people, clinical, competent, able, draw down those suggestions, complete a matrix, and then develop a plan. 2 weeks. If you have to put them in a hotel room and feed them for the whole 2 weeks and don't let them get out, feed them. Sit there and go and draw down from all those suggestions that have already been made. Come up with a plan, a matrix. We need a plan. And that's what we don't have. The government has not presented a plan. We need a plan. And when you have a plan, what do? Implement, implement, implement. Execute. That's what Julian Alfred told us. You have a plan, execute. May you pass execute. See you on your plan. Now, there's some people, no matter how they try, they cannot do it. Not everybody can be a Julian Alfred. You must have the competence. You must have the ability. Exesa Philip J. Pierre Jambutreno Ipani. Semona Ipani. Can't ask the man to do something he cannot do. He's told you he can't do it. And so we had a Minister of Home Affairs. Then she was relieved of certain positions. We have a Minister for Crime Prevention. I mean, it's just you're trying a thing, hitting and missing, hoping something will catch, and all the while people dying. Can you imagine? When are we going to get fed up, guys? Anyway, let me not talk too much. Let me go to the plan. So, I was so impressed to hear Brother Joshua Harrow. You know, when you hear young people speaking like that, we have hope. So, Joshua, I was wondering whether you ever heard about our Synergy program. Where's Joshua? Joshua, I was wondering whether you ever heard about our Synergy program. Because the United Workers' Party, in addition to the fact that we were providing all of the resources for the police and keeping the lid on crime when we were in office, we were also implementing those medium to long-term programs particularly aimed at vulnerable youth and vulnerable persons so that we would ensure that we did not have people committing the kinds of crimes that are being committed now. There is a big gap in our social programs here in St. Lucia. You have the Department of Human Services and Family Affairs. We know for years they've been understaffed, for years and years and years. And normally these departments deal with children. Once you're above 16, 17, it's almost a wepuko. So it's a situation where you have human services bursting at the seams, not being able to deal with all the social problems facing our children, and we know there are so many, just think about it. And in addition to that, all those children who have not been assisted have gone on to become the marginalized youth in society, and these are the bulk of the people we are seeing now committing the crimes. The Ministry of Youth and Sports cannot deal with them. The Ministry of Youth and Sports is not even focused really on juvenile delinquency. And we do not have to wait for people to become delinquents to help them. We need a system that can support persons from birth right up. And those of us who are listening, who are in the developed countries, we know what we're speaking about, where there is what you call early interventions and support to families, particularly families that are vulnerable. So we see problems before they manifest themselves into criminal activity, and we provide the support as we go along. That is how we ensure that we do not have so much crime in the country. There will always be problems. People will always do wrong things. But it is having a community and a system that can put people back on the right track that ensures that we all become productive citizens. Let's just think of how we grew up. The number of things we could have done wrong, but we had somebody to say, Sarah, hello, that's not the right way. And that is what has been lost. So, one of the things we worked on whilst I was in Castries Central was the Synergy program. And I want to suggest that that can be a model for us to follow. I'm not saying it's a perfect program. We were running it as a 2-year pilot, and the UN Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, UN-ECLAC, had agreed to evaluate the program with a view to helping us spread it out as a national program. How did we start the Synergy program? I spoke to Minister Guy Joseph at the time. He's here. We had the CDP monies, remember? And our government said very clearly, prior to us coming in office, CDP was used for concrete projects, bricks and mortar, which are important projects, building the pathways, building the footpaths, building the bridges. But we said we wanted to be sure that these monies also were used to empower people and not just build infrastructure. So I remember when we first came up with this idea, we wanted to have a comprehensive program in Castries Central that would address the needs of the whole person. So that anyone walking into our constituency office, particularly young people, when you walked in, we sat, we spoke with you, and you may have walked in because you didn't have money to buy a pair of shoes, but we sat and spoke with you, and we offered you a program to develop your whole self. We came up with 19 programs. 19 programs. Let me tell you, and I'm really hoping this is what our admin structure looked like. This is one, sorry, I don't want to block my face. This is one of them. I'm hoping at some point we can have a whole meeting to look at what we were doing, the United Workers' Party. Let's look at it, and then we can send it to the government, but it might go in the dustbin again, so I guess we won't do that. This is all of the work we had done and the infrastructure we had set up to make it a comprehensive program. We already had 35 people employed full-time. Right? And let me just explain to you the categories that we were looking at. Because I mentioned that we wanted to address the whole person. In other words, brothers and sisters, we are all broken people. Not one of us here is perfect. And let me tell you, let's not fool ourselves. But for the grace of God, there is no crime that one of us here is not capable of committing. Every single person in jail today, every criminal in jail today was born as a baby, innocent, a white slate. What went wrong? Lack of societal and social structure and support to ensure that we remain within a safe parameter as we develop. So I'm just running through. I'm already told I have only 5 minutes. See, that is why I don't like to get into things. By the time I start speaking, it's 5 minutes already. In any event, listen to our programs. Personal development and entrepreneurship. Under this head alone, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 programs. For example, we had a farm. Urban Grove Farm down in Roseau. We took 2 acres of land that the government assigned to us, and we started a farm from scratch. We had 7 farmers there working full-time. We trained them, accredited them as farmers, took them off the block in Castries Central. Most of them had never farmed before. Put in irrigation. We dug a dam on our own, built a farmhouse. By the time we had left office, we were harvesting. We were probably on our 5th harvest, providing employment for these young people, personal development and support for these young people. We had a car wash, but this was not just about washing cars. It was keeping young people employed within a structure whereby we could continue to be able to mentor and provide the support for them and show them really how to do a good business. So we're providing the support for them at the same time. We were able to graduate. I don't have the figures with me off the top of my head, but we were able to graduate persons in electricity, plumbing, masonry at South Louis. That was our program that we did. We had a Synergy Learning Academy where young people were again learning and studying for their O-levels. All these things we did. Synergy Housing. We had already acquired a home at Clarke, a 3-story building that we would house vulnerable young women there, provide support and training for them. And how did we start all that? I remember when I told the minister responsible for economic development at the time that we wanted to do that with our CDP program. That was the first time I think we were able to do a project like that. We did it. We already had 10 community support workers in our constituency addressing needs of the older persons, of persons with disabilities, of young people, all of that. The point I'm making is we need to have comprehensive programs so that when somebody walks through the door, we can assist them without asking them their whole history. When I looked at the youth entrepreneurship program, the youth economy program, when I looked at the form that somebody has to fill in to get help there, some of the young people I know in Castries Center, for example, wouldn't even look at that form twice. We need to have programs that will say to young people, regardless of what your past is, we are here to help you if you want to make a future for yourself. We need a program, even if it is general in approach, it can be personalized so that it can meet each person where that person is. And that's what the Synergy program did. So I really I'm hoping that at some other point we can take a look at this as a model, just a model. So the United Workers' Party was working. We had over 1,000 persons registered already with the Synergy program. So it is really, really important that whilst we prepare to form the next government, we would have thought that the St. Lucia Labour Party had a plan. The Prime Minister said that he was the most ready Prime Minister, but clearly he was not. You know that we are ready because we are ready to go in to continue the work that we were doing. To continue what we were already doing. So what I want to say this evening, brothers and sisters, look at what is happening with the CIP program. You cannot have people in government who lack principle, who lack honor, who lack integrity. That's where crime starts. There is something seriously wrong in our CIP program. There is something seriously wrong when reports that are due on such a fundamental matter cannot be presented and it's business as usual. The criminals are watching all of that. And if persons who are in leadership cannot be responsible and accountable, then almost you have no right even to speak to the criminals because they're watching what you are doing. And they're taking their cue from you. And so, the first step to dealing with crime is each one of us needs to commit. Each one of us needs to commit to be a better person. Each one of us needs to commit to be a better person. And being a better person also means making wise decisions. I think on the issue of crime alone, all the undecided voters need to recognize that this government cannot deal with crime. And all we have seen is the numbers rising and rising and rising. The crimes getting more atrocious. Before we finish, mourn for a 13-year-old, a 6-year-old is shot. There's no time to grieve. There's no time to mourn. Our people are dying like flies. There's such a low value on human life. You know, the one thing evil does is that it blinds us. When we are in evil, we don't see it. It blinds us. And really, we are living in a very jaded country. And it affects those of us who are trying to be good. Evil seems to still blind us. So we need to search ourselves really deeply. Search ourselves, each one of us. Search ourselves deep. And ask God to help us to begin to see things as they really are. And to make decisions based on the highest standards and godly standards. We all need to do it. And that's a personal decision that we need to make. In this election coming, it can no longer be about party. Each one of us needs to say, what should I do with my vote? What should I do for my country? What should I do for my child, for my son and daughter growing up? What should I do? Based on my own conscience. You know, when we go to the polls, nobody goes with us. Nobody sees how we vote. This time, when we go, we have to make a right decision. We have to correct the wrong decision we made that has enabled so much crime to descend upon us in this place. We have to begin to clean up St. Lucia again. It starts with us. So I want to thank you very much tonight for listening to me. I hope that we can have a chance to speak more about what the Synergy program really was like. Indeed, it's really difficult to speak in 15 minutes. But I hope that I've convinced you that the United Workers' Party needs to get in office for us to deal with this problem, so that we can continue the work we were doing that COVID interrupted. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Sarah. Now, let me just say this. Sister Sarah mentioned to you that the government has no plan. But I know for sure that the people have a plan. The government, the Prime Minister, took the recommendations that the leader of the opposition sent to him, since the UWP has a plan, and he threw it in the dustbin. Well, the plan that the people have will be to take the Prime Minister and his team and dump them in the igloo. Because it is about time that we make a change, and that change can only come with a replacement of this government. And the replacement for this government is obviously the United Workers' Party. And I'm happy. I'm happy that Sister Sarah mentioned some of the programs that we were implementing. And while you may not identify them or recognize them as crime-fighting programs, they were in fact preventing some of our young men from going astray and ending up in a life of crime. And she mentioned to you the Synergy program. We also had the after-school program. That you may consider to be an educational program, but indirectly, that went a long way in fighting crime. Because, and let me just say, the after-school program started under the United Workers' Party. Because I always worried as to what happens to children. And we know nowadays things are so rough that even when you have a mother and father in the family, they both must go to work to make ends meet. Sometimes they work from 8 in the morning to 4:30. By the time they get home, it's 5:30. But the children go to school at 8:30 and they are home by 2:30. What happens in the intervening hours between 2:30 and 5:30? Anything can happen. Those children could be on their own, being influenced by others who lead them astray, and there's no telling. And that is where they are recruited into gangs, recruited into all devious antisocial behaviors, because they have no guidance, they have no leadership, and there's no one to ensure that they are productively engaged. We put the after-school program in place so that those children would be there during that time, being taken care of. Those who need help with their homework would get the help. Those who want to engage in extracurricular activities would do so. And so by the time that the parents get home, they would get home as well, and there would be no window for the negative influence of gangs. Today, it appears, like Josh says, the attraction for young people, young men especially, is the gang. Why? People naturally have a tendency and a sense of wanting to associate, wanting to belong. And when the parents are not there, because unfortunately some of them have to work, when the civil society organizations are not there, if they don't go to the churches, they must find somewhere to go to. And so it's almost like commonplace now to gravitate to gangs. And you know what? The gangs are made to look cool. We don't snuff at it as we used to before. And when you have a government that sets a bad example, as Sarah was saying, you know you're in trouble. And I continue to say, and I will repeat, the biggest gang in St. Lucia is the government of St. Lucia. Because when you look at their behavior, they behave like gangsters. And I know the gentleman gets upset every time I say it. And among them, if there's a gang leader, that is Richard Frederick. So, and you can tell him I said it again. You know? So let me just say this. I am going to call on a gentleman who can speak on the subject of crime and violence, because he had, I think it was about 36-year career in the area of law enforcement. However, he has now transitioned into a new career. And I, being in that sphere long before him, with open arms, welcome him. And what I appreciate most about his new career is what he is about to do. And that is to defeat and dethrone the long-standing, clueless, helpless, hapless general, the one who called himself the 6-star general, to get rid of him once and for all. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a newcomer to the political scene, but has already created a stir, and we all wait in anticipation of the history-making performance that he will deliver to the United Workers' Party in the next general election. I call to the podium Mr. Chiquot, Peter Chiquot, to address you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Spider. After listening to the two previous speakers, I must say that probably you all read my speech. And so I am just going to make a few remarks to complement what they said before I got here. So I want to say good evening to all St. Lucians here and in the diaspora. I am wishing that you all are actually waiting with bated breath to hear what this live is all about. So I just want to again express my concern about things that are happening in this country. Over the past few days, we have heard of persons being robbed in broad daylight at a bus stop in Wavin Shabot. These crimes were committed by, I suppose, young men. We heard of a 6-year-old child who got shot in the mouth and a young man who got shot in his arm and leg. We heard of another young man being hacked to death in Vieux-Fort. We see social media footage of individuals fighting on the streets and in the communities as if we live in the wild. My dear friends, instead, we hear our Prime Minister, Mr. Philippe J. Pierre, on platforms telling St. Lucians to protect the victory and talking about persons running elections on February 30th. He says that they cannot beat him. Well, newsflash, Mr. Prime Minister, I come in too. And I want to say 3 words to you. I apologize. We hear Honorable Emma Hippolyte asking to protect Dr. Ernest Hilaire in Castries South. We are hearing all sorts of excuses in defense of the recent news of the criminal, corrupt developer for the Rock Hall housing project. Is the Prime Minister's political victory at the next election against me more important than the slaughtering of our children and the fear of our citizens in this country? Is the protection of Dr. Ernest Hilaire and his victory at the next election more important than the 63 murdered St. Lucian youth for this year? Or the 6-year-old who got shot in the mouth? Is the protection of the corrupt criminal DMAX investor more important than the lives of us as St. Lucians? These are questions that we as people must ask our leaders who are charged with the responsibilities for the safety and security of our lives. Crime in St. Lucia has become commonplace, and unfortunately, the citizens have become numb to the criminality. And so crime is referred to as another killing, another bank robbery, or another fight. My people of St. Lucia, I say this to continue my call and to champion the start of a movement of change to make St. Lucia a safer place for all St. Lucians. We see a misguided focus from our leaders who claim to put people first, but instead we see otherwise. The leaders are only interested in protecting themselves and their victory. The state of crime in St. Lucia cannot be allowed to continue unabated due to the impact on our health system. We heard from our health authorities that the crime is creating havoc on our health system and services. The well-being of our citizens, particularly children and young mothers. In most cases, these young mothers lose the fathers to their children. And guess what? The state has to step in to assist these parents. The trauma these children undergo will, if not given the necessary counseling and attention, will result in a revolving door syndrome, where these children will grow and the cycle will continue. The economic state, not just of the little communities, but the country, because people are fearful of leaving their homes to go out to socialize. Under the previous United Workers Party government, we saw initiatives to address the crime situation with the introduction of the K9 unit, the implementation of scanners at the ports of entry, the startup of the Border Control Agency, the retooling of the Marine unit and with vessels and functional radar systems. We heard Mr. Guy Joseph explain in the roundtable show on Thursday the number of radios and other equipment which would be given to the police and initiatives to ensure that our security personnel are incentivized through concessions to motivate them and keep them safe from the criminals they arrest. We saw an island-wide implementation of CCTVs, cameras, and I think that program should be further enhanced, where it should include CCTV cameras for personal and private homes. In most cases, the government will implement the CCTV cameras on the streets. We need the communities, the persons, the households in the communities to be equipped with CCTV cameras as well. That is an initiative that can work well in the fight against crime. So to combat the crime pandemic, which has become worse from July of 2021, as is referred to by our Prime Minister, Mr. Philippe J. under the United Workers Party government, these initiatives will be implemented to ensure that crime is dealt with and some semblance of normalcy where people will feel safe again. So my people, my call is not just for all supporters of the United Workers Party, but for all St. Lucians, both in St. Lucia and in the diaspora, who want to live and return to a safer St. Lucia, where our children can grow up and our people can move around in a peaceful and safe St. Lucia, to join the movement for change. We as a country must demand accountability from our leaders to fix this problem of crime and stop playing ostrich by removing our head from the sand and taking the stand against the criminal scourge. My message tonight, my people, is clear. All must join in the movement to say enough is enough. So I am asking all St. Lucians, when the election bell rings, tell the St. Lucia Labour Party government, Nuka Futoli. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chiquot. Another round of applause, please. And let me acknowledge the presence of the leader of the opposition, the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, who is with us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will bring you another brand new candidate for the United Workers Party. And there is a particular office that needs to be cleaned out. And in that office, you'll find a prime minister. And in that office, you'll find a housing minister. And we must get rid of both of them. And so I will now call on the recruit who will do the job while after Chiquot has gotten rid of the prime minister. Well, you have two prime ministers. The next gentleman will be the one to get rid of the other guy who I mentioned as a housing minister, but someone is telling me he is the prime minister. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on young Rosh Clarke to address you. Give him a rousing round of applause as he comes to make his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. On most cases, I am very ecstatic, I should say, and happy to be bringing my points across. But this one right here, as it pertains to crime and corruption that has been affecting us in this country, is one that we take at heart. We have had several occasions, it has been said here, many occasions that we've done the due diligence in research, feedback that's necessary to formulate and gather information on what can be addressed towards crime. How we can find ourselves solving the issue of crime and violence in this country. This party has done absolutely nothing to curb this. We're right now 7 times the global average when it comes down to our crime rate. 7 times. The lack of poor governance has been a major factor that has implemented the situation of the crime in this country. And this government doesn't understand the importance of it. They don't understand the cries of the people. They don't understand the challenges that persons face on a day-to-day basis going to and from their homes. It has been one that has reached all of our hearts. I gave an earlier scenario where a daughter lost her father on the doorsteps of a preschool. This is the condition and location that crime has arrived. No one is safe. No one feels secured. And a minister that has lost his way and has publicly announced at this stage he's frustrated and he doesn't know what to do. There's only one solution: to go home. Put the people that have the agenda, put the people that have the solutions of what it is that is necessary for this country in power. I'm ultimately so serious about this. This has been one that has been affecting us all. Right now, the lack of safety nets has been one that we cannot stop stressing on. There is little allocation that is implemented to curb the condition of crime right now. These safety nets have affected several groups, from the youth, the elderly. There is no form of protection that we have against all these criminal activities that have been affecting us. Systematic abuse of politicians who use the underprivileged to marginalize selling drugs and participating in illegal activity, just as means of taking advantage of them in their vulnerable situations to ensure that these persons can make a living, which then has us revert to the cost of living. It all ties in. Things are harder. Persons are finding themselves doing things that is unprecedented. We have persons participating in illegal activities at this stage to make ends meet. Is this the type of government we want to stand under? Is this the type of governance that we can promote? We need to be re-electing the United Workers Party in power so we can understand the set of individuals that understand what it takes for us to be protected. The sacrifices that we have to make, the tough decisions that are necessary. And yes, like Mr. Montoot indicated, you have persons that have several allegations laid against them. Where there is fire, where there is smoke, there is fire. This cannot go unattended. This can no longer be ignored. We need to take the actions as a people. We need to take the actions as a nation to move forward in electing the party that has the concerns of individuals such as ourselves. We all need to stand for this. And at this stage, it's not getting any better. The data shows it. The amount of individuals, the homicide rate. We've lost the understanding of what it is to be a community. We've lost the understanding of what it is to care for individuals. We've lost the understanding where persons in power show the level of humility towards their constituency. This is one that I will not stand for. This is one that our leader, Alan Michael Chastanet, will not stand for. And the United Workers' Party will ensure that this country can once again become safe, become protected, become considered as one of the valuable countries in this world that has made that level of change and sacrifice for their people. This current government doesn't understand what it takes. This current government needs advice. They need to seek consultancy. They can't do it. And we can no longer sit back and have the ideas come to them. Give them the ample enough time till they figure out a solution. This is one that I know that we can stand forward and take a stand. We have to take this stand. Once again, I want to stand here and ensure you that the United Workers' Party will be putting forward the attention of crime and violence as a key concern, as a key factor that needs to be changed in the next elections. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Rosh. And ladies and gentlemen, our country really is in crisis. I mean, you can choose from among the whole list: high cost of living, health crisis. But tonight we're talking specifically about the crime situation. Now, you know, we have a government who's always keen on making comparisons and try to tell you St. Lucia is not alone. But let me just put things into perspective for you just a little bit. Many of us go to and from Martinique. Martinique is a country with about 395,000 people. That is the population. 395. What is the population of St. Lucia? About 180,000? Okay. So you have 395,000 people in Martinique. St. Lucia has 180,000. In St. Lucia, you already have 62 murders. Now, well, some people tell me 64 already. Now you can blame me if I have lost track. How could I keep count on the kind of murders? Well, as I'm talking to you, you're telling me 64. As I'm talking to you, it could be 65. We don't know. That is what the situation is, you know. But let me just say to you, the people in Martinique are up in arms about homicides in Martinique, just like St. Lucia. Well, no, I may not say just like St. Lucia. It has become normal in St. Lucia. Our government doesn't speak about it, and we almost reached the point where we have become numb and we're not speaking about it. But the people in Martinique are up in arms because of homicides in Martinique. But ask me how many people have died in Martinique. 19. Out of a population of 395,000, 19 people have been killed in Martinique, and the Martinicans are up in arms. And in St. Lucia, with a population of 180,000, We have whether it's 62, 64, 65, okay? All that amount of people murdered, lost their lives, and your government couldn't care less. They couldn't be bothered. And you know what's most disturbing? Among those killed in this country through violent crime, you have children. While your prime minister goes to New York and tell our citizens living in New York that it's not a big deal, is young men killing themselves. And I'm going to repeat it again. It is not young men killing themselves. Innocent people are dying as well. Children are dying as well. Because if it was young men killing themselves, we would not be talking about homicide, Mr. Prime Minister. We would be talking about suicide. Because when people kill themselves, it is suicide. Don't pretend. Because if you go and research the suicide numbers, it's not that high. So he's telling you it's young men killing themselves. Because I heard some people quoting the Prime Minister say young men killing each other. That's not what he said. He said young men killing themselves. And you see, that's the kind of pretense. And these are deliberate things that they do. They use language conveniently to fool people. And so when you go to New York now and tell the people what's happening here, they say that's not true. The Prime Minister was here recently, and you'll just have a few suicides in St. Lucia. And that's the impression he will give. But I will say to the Prime Minister, you're not a police, leave the station. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, I will call on my next speaker. And these some of the speakers you have heard there are the generals. You talk about 6-star general. These are the generals that will make the difference for the people of St. Lucia. They will not be asking you to protect them. They will be coming to protect you. They will not be asking you to protect any victory for them. You will give them the victory that will have them to protect you. And that is where the difference is. That is where the difference is. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I will call on a tried, tested, and proven general. In the space of 5 years, notwithstanding COVID, he was able to deliver to the constituency of ancillary canneries. And I know, ancillary canneries, you have regretted. I understand. Accept my sympathy. But let's not wallow in sorrow. Let's not wallow in sorrow. There is hope. And the United Workers' Party is providing that hope. And that hope will come to ancillary canneries through the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party. Please welcome Dominic Fedee, who will address you.
Thank you, Spider. I was hoping that Spider would have played my song so I could come out dancing like I did at the meeting at the Boulevard. Somebody took a clipping of the dance and spread it around on Facebook. And I realized that there were a few more hundred additions to my likes. So I'm disappointed that Spider didn't play my song tonight. Mama Flambeau, how are you doing tonight? How are you doing? All right. I want to recognize our political leader, Honorable Alan Chastanet. I want to recognize my colleague and the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, the right guy, and all of you who are following him from Castries Southeast, and all of you that are from other constituencies. I want to big you up for coming tonight. The topic we chose tonight is a very serious topic. I'm here listening to the speakers, and I'm in reflection mode, because all of us who have served as members of parliament, MPs, we go to funerals. And I have had the displeasure of going to many funerals where very often the people that are being buried are young men who would have fallen to gun violence, who would have had altercations with other young men, who would have been members of gangs and would have fell prey to the crisis that is hitting us right now. And I can tell you that it's not a lot of fun hugging and holding those mothers who are crying and speaking to those sisters and brothers who are feeling grief and feeling pain because of an untimely death from a gunshot, most times to the head, several times to the body, multiple shots. I mean, one young man comes to mind who went everywhere with me in the last election, nicest guy you can find. And he lost his life somewhere in the Mondido area. And I never ever thought that it was possible that this young person, must have been 28, would have ever perished so young. He was full of life. He was a leader in the community of Jacmel, was an incredible soul. Many young guys looked up to him. But today, he perished because of gun violence. Another story of a young footballer who played for the Roseau Valley team, a striker, incredible footballer, was on the brink of making the national team and was in the wrong place at the wrong time one evening, a social activity just as normal in the community of Boaden, and an altercation between two young men. He ended up being shot 3 times in the process. And today, he has a bullet lodged in his spine. And that really says the end to his dream of being a footballer for his country. Again, because of the crime situation that we face. And I can go on and on and on with stories like that. And you've seen some nationally. The mother of Kimberly Delia, I wonder how does she sleep at nights. And the young girl from Babonneau who was expecting her father to come pick her up at school like he usually does, only to find out that, her plight that day would be coming out, and instead of embracing her father and saying, "Daddy, how was your day? This is the day I had," she had to go through the ordeal of watching her father lay in his own blood. This is what we face. I don't even want to talk about the stats tonight because the stats are even more depressing. And the stats don't bring justice and closure to those people that have perished, those parents who are having to deal with the fact that their children are not burying them, but they are burying their children. I am a father of 3 wonderful young people. And I never ever want to have to go through the ordeal of someone calling me and saying any of them have perished, much less to gun violence. So there is the need as a political party. We don't just have an obligation to talk. We have an obligation to stand up. We have an obligation to say to this government, enough is enough. We have to make sure that our voices give voice to the stories of all of those people who are feeling the pain tonight, who are hurting inside, who are wishing that they were there to protect them. Just imagine you're a father. And as fathers, we're very protective, especially of our daughters. And just imagine the young girl who was in Dennery went to a social event. Just imagine how her father feels. Just imagine the failure that he feels. It's the same failure that comes about when we are not able to put food on the table. And that's why we must never, ever misunderstand the desperation that we put young men in. That's why the biggest crime that has been committed on our fathers is a travesty by the government by allowing the cost of living to go up on the poor people of this country, by taking it further out of reach, the ability of fathers to take care of their children and take care of their families, the indignity, the shame that this government has placed them in by not growing a dynamic economy so that these men can work and look after their families. There's a certain level of desperation that comes from a man when you have to look at your young children and say, I can't afford it. And that desperation has been exacerbated by the failed policies of the Philip J. Pierre administration, when they've allowed bus fares to go up, when they've allowed bread to go up, when they've allowed cooking gas to go up, when they've allowed the prices of groceries to be as bad as they are in the supermarket, when they have allowed things to go as sky high as they have. And that is the injustice that is causing the crime. You see, when crime is reported to the police, it's way too late. The police can't do anything to solve it. It is effective government policies, it is effective social policies that will help to create that shield that we need to keep our communities and our families safe. It is only by effective policies. And I'm proud to tell you, when Spider was the Minister for Social Transformation and Alan Chastanet was our Prime Minister, our government had a holistic view to this. Not only did we make sure that we equipped the police with some of the latest machinery, like the CCTV cameras that you see everywhere, the opening of the forensic lab, which was closed for many, many years. The radar system was not working when we got into government. The police Coast Guard engine wasn't working. All of this we had to do. We were on our way to make sure that we had an effective border control mechanism in place so that we can protect our borders, we can stop the guns or manage the flow of guns from coming into our country. This was the kind of work that United Workers' Party administration did. But more important than that, we had very, very strong results in the youth sector. And one number I'll never forget is in 2015, youth unemployment was 44%. It means 1 in every 2 young persons that you knew were unemployed. These young people, they've got dreams. They're very materialistic. They love to be able to afford things that they see on television, cell phones, laptops, iPads, fancy brand name shoes. And when a young person is faced in a country where they've gone to school, they've studied, they're looking for a job and can't find a job, that is a point of frustration. And we recognize that straight away we needed to do something about the high youth unemployment rate if we were going to have any impact on the crime situation in the country. And the youth unemployment rate, I'm happy to say that with the skillful economic management and leadership of the Minister of Finance, your leader and your Prime Minister at the time, Alan Chastanet, we brought it down in 3 short years, youth unemployment from 44% to 31%, making sure that we create jobs in every sector so that the young people can be employed gainfully in various sectors. When you look at projects such as Ojo Labs and ITEL BPO and a whole host of other projects, the expansion of several hotel projects that you knew, were about building the cruise ship port in the south of the island. These were all done to make sure that the young people of the country can find long-term, sustainable, good paying jobs. This was one of the pillars upon which our crime fighting was on. So what we did was build these young people. Through NAPS, we trained hundreds of them. In my constituency, we had at least 200 that were trained under the National Apprenticeship Program. And that allowed them to compete for jobs globally on the cruise ships, the various cruise lines around the Caribbean, so that we were saying to these young people, there is a future for you with the United Workers' Party. There's a future for you with in St. Lucia. There's a future for you if you would just make sure that you can take hold of these opportunities that we are creating for you. And so when you see the playing fields that we did island-wide, making sure that we had a holistic approach to the development of sports, making sure that in addition to all the playing fields that you saw, the National Sports Academy that was established in Grosley at the former Grosley Secondary School, and all of those programs were geared at making sure that we strengthen the youth sector. We give the young people the capacity and the ability that they need to make them stronger, make them more hopeful, to say to them, stay away from crime, stay away from drugs, stay away from gangs, stay away from trafficking. That there is an alternative that was created for young people more and more. And Spider spoke about the increased investment in after-school programs. I remember we had with USAID a Youth at Risk program targeting young people in crime hotspots, where those young people were being trained and being geared and being prepared for the world of work so that they can stay away from all of the illegitimate activities that we have spoken about. And that's the difference between them and us. We didn't have a prime minister who say, my father wasn't a policeman, neither was I. He actually said, I am the leader and I am responsible for the crime problem in the country, and I'm going to do something about fighting the crime in St. Lucia. So leadership is the quintessential thing. Leadership is the thing that is going to get us through this crisis. We have been there before as a country. We've had issues. The era of 1979, 1982 will never be forgotten. And our country has seen where whenever it has fallen on hard times, it is the United Workers' Party, regardless of which generation, that comes and rescue St. Lucia. St. Lucia is calling on us again to save it from this government that is clueless, that came to government without a plan, whether it's about crime, whether it's about the economy, whether it's about infrastructure, whether it's about housing, whether it's about education. They have got no plan. And we're seeing the fruits of it. We're seeing how dangerous it is when we elect people with no capacity. And so if we're going to deal with this problem in a very effective way, we need to give close attention to the issue of second chances. Second chances for our young people. I think that too often our system of dealing with young offenders is one that is overly punitive. What I mean by that is that we will all commit an atrocity at some point. We will all make mistakes. And our system must say to those young people that even if you make a mistake and you are willing to change, that our society is warm and embracing and is willing to accept you back into the fold and work with you and rehabilitate you and rebuild you and put you into a place of overcoming from your wrong. But what has happened is that you ask a company recruiting, and a guy shows up and he's got an offense and he brings that police record. I don't think that he will make it past the interview. And I think that these things have got to change about our culture if we are going to effectively change the current status quo of the crime situation. If we say to that young man that because you've got this criminal record, that you are not considered to be hired. We're saying to him, go back into the crime. We're saying to him, go back into the bad life. We're leaving him widely exposed to drug dealers and other criminals. We're leaving him vulnerable for the other world, the underworld, to pick him up and to use him as an instrument of crime again. But just imagine if we can make sure that this shield, this wall that we're building to prevent crime from taking place in a proactive approach by saying that even the guys who are likely to be reoffenders, that we're going to embrace them, that we're going to help to change them and counsel them and train them for new jobs in the new economy that we are creating. Just imagine how much more we're helping them to overcome those difficulties. Just imagine if our communities didn't stigmatize them. I have a young man who goes to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the constituency of Ancillary. He's from Millet. And he was a gang offender. And, I mean, all the crimes, he has committed it under the sun. So he decided to go to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And he said when people saw him in the church, they couldn't believe it was him that had changed his life and was ready now to come and serve Jesus. And I want to say today that this young man is going around St. Lucia and he is preaching the gospel of Jesus and saying to young men in the ghettos and in inner city areas and in crime hotspots, and he's saying to them, guys, if I did it, you can do it too. If I can change my life, you can change your life as well. And so this man is one of my heroes. And so one of these days, I hope that you get the chance to meet him because he does the most effective work. He reaches young men in gangs. He goes into ghettos that politicians couldn't go. He has a certain level of trust that we don't have among young people. And he is seen as part of the solution rather than the problem. And that's an example to me of how, by embracing and creating that atmosphere for people who lived a life and is ready to leave that life behind, how we can do so much more a better job at reintegrating them into our society. And so, my friends, our country, our communities, our families are in trouble. And we need to rise up and save it. The United Workers' Party must rise up. The United Workers' Party must march. The United Workers' Party must organize itself. The United Workers' Party must rally behind its leader and get ready for the battle so that we can take this country back and place it in a great destiny of change, of hope. Let's get it going. So, my friends, our nation needs peace and love. Rather than protecting the victory, the Prime Minister needs to engage civil society groups. The Prime Minister needs to embrace churches. It is the churches that do the most amazing job of preaching of forgiveness and love. I mean, one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is where Jesus says that if you hate your brother, that you are a murderer. So the scripture is not waiting for you to commit the act of violent crime, but the scripture is saying that the minute you have hate in your heart, remove the hate and replace the hate with love and with peace and with joy and long suffering. And that's what young people will learn in churches. But you see, a smart government would embrace that message of peace and hope and togetherness and forgiveness. A smart government would say, let's listen to spiritual leaders. Let's create that atmosphere so that religious and spiritual leaders can be part of this conversation and be part of the solution so that we can build that shield and protect our families, protect our young people, protect our ladies from being raped, protect the animosity. I mean, there's no need that you're driving in St. Lucia today and you make a mistake on the road and people are ready, they're so full of rage to hit your head off. We are too on edge as a country. We need to heal ourselves. And so we must ensure that a holistic solution to the crime problem is enforced so that we can place our communities into a brand new day. Mamai Flambeau, are you ready? Are you ready, Mamai Flambeau? Are you ready to do this? Are you ready to advance a holistic solution to the problem of crime in this country? God bless you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Dominic, Fedee. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the crossroads. We live in a country riddled with crime. And we appear to be we are being led rather, by criminals. And I say so because when the St. Lucia Labour Party assumed the reins of governance in St. Lucia, one of the first criminal acts of theirs was to expunge the criminal records of their supporters who violated the COVID laws while we were in office, and they were arrested. For that, the Labour Party expunged the records. That is criminal. Because you know what that contributed to? When we left office, there were about 80 St. Lucians who had died as a result of COVID. And the whole world marveled and admired St. Lucia for the handling of COVID. And our Prime Minister, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, with his cabinet, were being complimented worldwide for their management and handling of crime. We were an example to the rest of the world. As soon as Labour Party came into office, about 400 St. Lucians perished as a result of COVID because of their mismanagement. I mean, we have seen mismanagement on their part in all forms. And when the whole world is drowning in sugar, we have a shortage of sugar in St. Lucia. So that alone tells you. I have to say to you too, that I also consider when the government of St. Lucia allowed the health situation to deteriorate to such an extent that the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association had to write a letter to lament and complain about the poor health situation and to say that it was the worst that it had ever been. When they say that, I want you to understand what that means. When your health situation is in such a poor state, it means that you will have people dying unnecessarily because of poor health care. That is criminal. When you have a government who has the price of gas, and before I go there, let me just say to you, when the United Workers' Party was in office, they capped the price of gas at $13.95 a gallon, and it did not matter how high the price of fuel was on the world market. The government of St. Lucia is now looking at fuel at about $70. Okay, when we were there were times when it went above $100. Now it's about $70 for a barrel on the world market, and you are paying $16.50. At one time it was $17.95. Now it is $16.50, and they refuse to bring down the price as the price of oil on the world market goes down so that you can get a reprieve in St. Lucia. That is criminal. And when you have, okay, we had inflation worldwide as a result of COVID, as a result of Ukraine war and all of that. Okay? I understand that. Prices went up. So people started suffering. What a United Workers' Party does at a time like that, they will decrease taxes. They will provide incentives. They will subsidize costs to ensure that they give you a reprieve and that you don't suffer too much under those high prices. A Labour Party government, they keep the prices high, they reduce the subsidies, and they put an additional 2.5% levy to make the price even higher, which is a compounded tax. That is criminal. When your government can take your primary asset, and I'm prepared to say among our primary assets in this country are our ports. That's where a government makes most of its money, through the importation and exportation of goods that come into your port. When you take that asset, where you have almost guaranteed money, and you give it away to a foreigner, both soufre and castries, and to add insult to injury, you say in Viewfort, you cannot develop that port anymore so that we can have, for example, the cruise ship terminal that we, the United Workers' Party, wanted to bring in St. Lucia to make St. Lucia a home port. You say that for the next 40 years, that cannot be done. That is criminal. I want to say to you too, that when a government can swindle billions, very few of us will have an idea what billion look like. My 1 million, you a billion. Okay? Billions of your dollars is allowed to be swindled between themselves and foreigners, between themselves and known criminals in your CIP program. When a government can be embroiled in such corruptions, that is criminal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you vote Labour again in St. Lucia, that is criminal. And so I say to you, send the criminals packing. We have to take a stand in the interest and benefit of our country to free our country of crimes and criminals. So in the next general election, we have to ensure. Now, by the way, talking about next general election, when is the next general election? February 30th. Boy, that says a lot about your prime minister. When a prime minister tells you the next general election is going to be February 30th, well, you know what? We can't depend on a man like that. According to our constitution, he is supposed to call the date. But we know what will happen, because when he's looking at February 30th, you know we'll never have an election. We have to call the date. St. Lucia, I said, we have to call the date. And so, I normally put the Labour Party on notice. I am putting the leader of the opposition on notice. Come 1st of November, if the government does not observe the ultimatums that you gave them, we St. Lucians are taken to the streets, and we're going to let our voices be heard. We're going to let our voices be heard, because we want that government out of office, and we're going to have election called as soon as possible. And they better not take it for a joke. And I know you are ready, St. Lucians, and I know you are prepared to take a stand. Now, we're not going to be allowing ourselves to be fooled by empty rhetoric, by bluffs, and all the lies and propagandas anymore. Because, you know, they spend so much of your money doing that already, trying to fool you. Hiring, what they call him, special prosecutor. Because certain ministers in the SLP was doing this and was doing that and was corrupt. 3 years has passed. Not one evidence, not one shred of evidence on anybody, not one person taken to court. In less than 3 years, there are ministers in government who have been taken to court. And let me tell them, you see, sometimes there's the saying, "Kuye jamet avant kuye jamet," and there's the saying that people judge others by their standard. What they were warning us of is what to expect from them. But very soon, don't be surprised if you see some of them in orange jumpsuits and silver bracelets. The corruption must stop. But we're going to put it to an end even before that. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Workers' Party has provided you and presented to you part of the team that will bring about that redemption. One of the members of that team As a matter of fact, the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, who they have accused of all forms and fashion. But you know, sometimes you just have to be patient. Time is a great revealer. Time is a great healer. So now, guess who will be laughing? Guess who will be smiling? When the people who are making the accusations become the people who are convicted and condemned. Ladies and gentlemen, he has been called all sorts of names, but time has redeemed him. We now know that we should no longer listen to the bluff of the St. Lucia Labour Party, the SLP, the party of secrets, lies, and propaganda. Listen to the party that shows you the light and brings you the truth. I want to bring you some more truth about the St. Lucia Labour Party, because what we do in the United Workers' Party is when they start telling lies about them, we bring our people to tell the truth about them. I call on a guy that will do that right now for you. The right guy. The right guy. The next parliamentary representative of Castries Southeast, Guy Joseph, will now address you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montoute. Good night, Flambeau family. Good night, St. Lucia. It is indeed a pleasure to be here at Flambeau Live once again. And as we seek to address you on critical issues that confront our country, our lives, our families, we want you to understand that this is not just political talk. Nobody has been parler politics this year. We are appealing to St. Lucians to evaluate the information that you are receiving. And what is not good, reject it. Because I want you to understand, today the common phrase in St. Lucia is all political parties are the same. I said that is a lie. You can tell me Flambeau is worse than Labour or better than Labour, but all political parties are not the same. Now, you know when this becomes the talk, when Labour Party is in office and they are not performing, then those who want to defend them jump on and say, yo tout se même. Well, yo tout pas même. Because if you go to every constituency represented by the United Workers' Party over the years, you can see the difference in the performance and the work by the UWP representatives. And I am willing for any Labourite to choose any constituency of their choice that have been represented by a United Workers' Party candidate, and let us measure our performance against a Labour Party candidate, whether it be for 5 years or 10 years. I am willing in Castries Southeast to measure 5 years against 15 years of Labour. And I can show you that United Workers' Party did more in 5 years in Castries Southeast under the leadership of Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet than Labour did for 15 years under Philip J. Pierre and Kenny Anthony. So how dare people come and say, yo tout se même? All of us are not the same. I know UWP is better for St. Lucia than the St. Lucia Labour Party. So, I know my political leader, Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet, is by far a much better prime minister than Philip J. Pierre can ever be in 10 lifetimes. The evidence speaks for itself. The performance speaks for itself. You see, we get to a point in our country when we are hopeless, when even the supporters of the Labour Party cannot find something to defend the performance of their government. And so they resort to try to put everybody in the same bracket. I listen to the talk shows when I get the time. And some prominent callers try to say that too, but I don't agree with them. Sir John was a better prime minister than any prime minister in the St. Lucia Labour Party. As bad as Stephenson King was, he was a better prime minister than any prime minister in the St. Lucia Labour Party. And the man himself, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, stood head and shoulders above every prime minister prior to Sir John and after Sir John. The only exception is Sir John. So, people of St. Lucia, the facts are there for us to see. And you heard from Spider the handling of COVID. COVID was something that hit the world. Maybe many people who are older than I am have never experienced anything like COVID, where the entire world was on lockdown. And there was no model. There was no formula. There were no vaccines. There was nothing in place except we had a prime minister in St. Lucia who put the lives of the people of St. Lucia above the political decisions of winning an election. And we paid a heavy price. But you know what? I am proud of what my leader did, because there is nothing that can replace the life of an individual that has been lost. And when in America, the great United States of America, with all its advancements, could not handle the number of deaths that they had, people were packed into containers, refrigerated containers. Our prime minister made the sensible decisions in St. Lucia. And in the peak of COVID, with no vaccine, under his leadership, there were just about 80 deaths in St. Lucia. After the vaccine and the Labour Party came into office, there were over 400 deaths. You want to tell me all prime ministers are the same, all politicians are the same, all governments are the same? I say no. And we, as United Workers' Party supporters, and those who may not be affiliated to a political party, you have to put where right is. Put right where right is. And we know that Alan Michael Chastanet deserves to be the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia. To put this country back on the right path. You know, the crime situation is a scary situation. I have said to persons, you know, there was a time when people would end up in an altercation and somebody may have lost their life. There was a time when domestic violence played a major role in bringing up the homicide rate in this country. But today, we are seeing a different level of criminal activity in this country. You don't have to have problems with anybody. You just have to be at a certain place at a certain time and your life is at risk. And what do we have? We have a government. Now, I will tell you, they have tried things. You have tried by. But you see, in a country like ours, it cannot be trial and error. You cannot learn on the job. There must be a clear plan. Let me tell you how bad it is. They took away the head man at Bodily Correctional Facility and they put him in charge of the police, and Bodily is headless. Ask them, who is in charge of Bodily? So you take the man who was in charge of Bodily, you take him to send people to Bodily, but it's like going in and going out because there's nobody in charge. So you see what I'm saying to you about a clueless government? Ring the bell to Jukadu, gouvernement sans plan. They have no plans. Because any sensible person would know that you need a well-rounded system that includes the judiciary, the law enforcement, and the incarceration of those who should be behind bars. You mean to tell me all the people in St. Lucia? And I have no problems with that gentleman being the commissioner of police. But you mean you could not find somebody else to replace him while he is gone? So how many prisoner escapes you have heard recently? Huh? So think of it for a moment. This other fella took a holiday. He went for 6 hours and then he just went and reported himself to the Marsham police station. So he just took 6 hours off from Bodily. He went about his business and then. And somebody said, well, he said he wanted to see Julia Alfred. So he went and see her. You understand? Is that, now that sounds comical, doesn't it? But that is what passes for governance in this country today. So are we really serious as a people? Because let me say to you, it's been proven. No country, no church, no club, no organization can rise above its leader. The leader is the benchmark. So which set of St. Lucians that put Philip J. Pierre in charge of St. Lucia and expect St. Lucia to rise to a higher level than Philip J. Pierre? You see what our problem is in this country? And I'm saying, I don't want to make fun of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister makes enough fun of himself. He doesn't need my help. But I'm simply saying that these are serious issues that confront us. Nobody in the Caribbean. Imagine, St. Lucia used to be the lead country in the OECS. Now we are the laughing stock of the OECS, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world. We have a prime minister. There are no words in the present English dictionary to describe him. I'm still trying to find words in patois to describe the prime minister, and I have not found the appropriate words. Now, I want to say to us, I'm not picking on the prime minister. I want you who are intelligent, you who say you went to school. Some of you are university graduates. We talk about young people. We talk about the future generations. As a young person, you really think that Philip J. Pierre can take this country somewhere that you can be proud of? You really think that Philip J. Pierre has the capacity or the capability of taking this country to another level? I said it to you before the election. If you want to know what St. Lucia would look like under Philip J. Pierre, look at Masha after 25 years of representation. And you didn't believe me. But now you are seeing. And I will tell you. Mr. Leader of the Opposition, I want you to donate 2 buckets of paint to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia so that his office in Masha does not look like a derelict building. There must be some class associate. Moi, je passe Masha tous les jours, ça. Sou e pa de building la. Zeb ka levan le fence la. Wala, la dan leta. That is not looking like a place befitting of a prime minister to meet constituents. And so I'm calling on my leader to donate 2 buckets of paint. Let them paint the wall. Because look here, this is our country, you know. People, you think it's because Philip J. Pierre cannot afford 2 buckets of paint? The man is just nasty. The man is just classless. And if they don't have time, change it. By tomorrow, I invite the media to go and take some photos of what I am saying and prove that what I'm saying is not true. Si yo pa penti we yo swear. You understand? So I am saying to us, you surprised that the whole of Castries has become like a little ghetto? Because you have a representative and all he can build is little plywood things. The man going Dennery and build houses. It's little plywood thing. They went into Castries, Southeast and built a house for somebody, a little plywood thing. They went in the middle of Castries, little plywood things. And now they went and they said they're building something for the vendors. And it's little plywood things alone the man can build. Now, I want you to observe the difference. I heard somebody call Newspin and said, look here, we need to give the people an upgraded place for them to sell their produce. Under the leadership of the Honorable Alan Chastanet, a world-class market was built. And you can go there and see the stalls that was built for the vendors. That their produce and the goods they were selling should not be on the ground. That's a man of class. That's a man who thinks highly of the people that he represents. So, those who want to call talk shows and say all politicians are the same, I want to say my political leader is a politician at a different level and wants a higher standard for St. Lucia. Now, some people may not like him, but I've always told you, you know why Labour does not like him? Not because of the color of his skin, not because of his complexion. It's because of his success. It's his success that affects them. Because I know they like white people. Don't mind them. Don't mind them. Who is GPH? Who did they give our pots to? And you know how much money is involved in that? 400 million US dollars. So you giving people you don't like 400 million US dollars? Huh? So they're making noise about the Honorable Alan Chastanet to distract you, while at the same time they are taking all your valuable assets and giving it to the same people they tell you they don't like. You see, do not allow Labour to fool you. Who they selling the passports to? You think it's in Africa they selling the passports? Tell me how many CIP passports they selling in Africa. Huh? Yes. And the Hall of Justice. Emil Elias. Is he black like skinny? Huh? Who is Emil Elias? Huh? Oh. But they can give, and it's not just a 3D, it's a white 3D. You understand? But they can give him a contract without tender to build the halls of justice for over $150 million. And that will become the highest rent government is paying for any building in the history of this country. But they want to distract St. Lucians. They want to make you believe that is a problem with the pigmentation of somebody's skin. Don't be fooled, St. Lucia. And young people, we are more intelligent than that. You have gone to school. You have learned. It's a global community. Information is readily available on the internet. If what I'm saying there, go and Google who is Emil Elias. And go and Google who are the owners of GPH. Now, yes, to build 2 little houses in Rock Hall, you couldn't find one local St. Lucian to give to sell CIP. Huh? Now they said they were building a high-rise. They promised us a high-rise building in cul-de-sac and a smart city. Y'all forget Philip J. Pierre promised a smart city in cul-de-sac? I still waited for the smart city and the high-rise. But let's go to what they are doing, because I want you to understand. There is a deliberate ploy by the Labour Party to mislead you. And some Flambeaus are falling for the tricks of Labour. I don't support Alan Chastanet because of the color of his skin. If he was a blockhead like Pierre, he could be white like snow, I would not support him. Okay? So I want you to understand that I support individuals based on the quality of the person and what they bring to the table. And I am satisfied that the Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet is a better man to lead St. Lucia than anybody else in the United Workers' Party today, including Guy Joseph. Alan Chastanet is by far a better prime minister than Guy Joseph or my colleague Dominic Fedee, the deputy leaders, can be. Because you know why? He has proven that in the worst of times and in the best of times, he can handle himself. And so, St. Lucia, this is not just political talk. This is the future of this country. This is what our new or young generation will inherit, what we have left behind. And I want to know that when my time is gone, that history can look back and say the contribution they made to this country was good. My mother and my father is gone. But I am proud that they were consistent in supporting the United Workers' Party and Sir John Compton that built the foundation of this country. And what we inherit today, what we enjoy today, is not what we have worked for. It is the sacrifices that our parents made that made St. Lucia a better place for us. You know what our parents used to say? Mavle mamay mwen mize kon mwen mize. Mavle yo souffre manye mwen souffre. And even if they could not read and write, they made sure we went to school. That's why Sir John had to break away from George Charles and the Labour Party to form the United Workers' Party, because St. Lucia was making no progress under Labour. And they built this country. And today, every time we put Labour in office, they are destroying the country. Every time we made 10 strides forward on the UWP, Labour comes in, mashes up everything, and when you come back into government as a UWP, you have to start all over again. I told my political leader, I'm not worried about whether we can win election or not. When I go to bed, and I wake up during the night or early in the morning and I'm thinking things over, I don't try to think of how I'm going to win an election. I try to think of how are we going to fix this mess that has been created by the St. Lucia Labour Party. How are we going to get back from GPH our $400 million US dollars that Philip J. Pierre has given away? And now they want to do the same with the airport. We have to think. You have taken a loan from the Saudis, and you are wasting $265 million on a derelict building when you have a brand new state-of-the-art building waiting to be utilized. That less than $100 million could have given you a state-of-the-art, resilient building. Earthquake and hurricane resilient. So, when UWP gets into government, we still have to pay the Saudis. So, how do you justify that? How do you justify this road that is right a few hundred yards from here? A few hundred yards from here. A road that under the leadership of Alan Michael Chastanet, $15 million would have completed that road with a walkover, with lights in the middle, with 4 lanes of road. The Labour Party stopped the road, went and evaluated the price of the contract. Now remember, we gave a fixed price contract for $15 million. So Fresh Start had to finish the 4 lanes, put the walkover, put the median barriers, put the lighting and the sidewalks, the 2 roundabouts, and pave the road. And you saw the drains they were putting. All the drains were slab. And they had to leave all the manholes and everything so that you could clean the drains in the event they got clogged. All of that for $15 million. And they called it bauble. Well, you know, when they went according to the ministry's rates and evaluated the work that has been done up to how the road is there now, they have to pay Fresh Start $21 million for half the road. That UWP was going to pay $15 million for the complete road, and people call us bobolis. So who is making the bobble? I want St. Lucians and St. Lucians. I want the intelligent people who think they know everything. Challenge me on this information. Challenge me on it. Because you see, St. Lucia, the money is coming from Philip J. Pierre or Stevenson King or Richard Frederick to pay that $21 million. Every one of us who are taxpayers in this country, whether you pay tax for your salary or for what you buy, you are paying for that $21 million. And I've heard that they have asked them $20 million to finish the road. A new contractor is asking $20 million to finish the road. So how much is the $15 million road on the Alan Chastanet going to cost on the labor? $41 million. So, you think I'm worried about how to win the election? Or how do you fix these things when you get into government? That is the headache. That is the challenge. They stopped the airport project. OECC is gone. In fact, they stopped the St. Jude project. OECC has now signed a contract to build a new hospital in St. Kitts, and it's the same design of St. Jude. Did you hear what I said? Everything that we want. They may not need a helipad in St. Kitts because of the size of St. Kitts. But I'm just telling you, I know for a fact that the contract has been signed for a new hospital. And And the same people who are involved in the design of the hospital with us in St. Jude's are the ones doing it in St. Kitts. You see what we are paying for electing Labour Party into office? So you understand why crime is a problem in this country? Everything is a problem. The cost of living is a problem. Children going to school is a problem. Getting a job is a problem. Don't worry about what Labour told you. And I want St. Lucians to understand. I support minimum wage. But not the method of minimum wage implemented by Labour. Because it is putting, you see, all those who are below the minimum wage and they're now at minimum wage, I support that 100%. But what about those who are above minimum wage, that they are dismissing them from the jobs and employing new people at minimum wage? So, I had a laborer working for me. I pay him $80 a day. If I don't use my good conscience, I can simply say, your services are no longer needed. I will employ somebody on the minimum wage and pay $52 a day. You remember when laborers were getting $60 and $70 a day for construction? Labour Party came to Parliament on behalf of Reno and gave minimum laborers wage $55. You all don't remember that? I remember. Reno still pas satisfied. So what he did, he went and bring workers from outside. And who's building St. Jude? And all St. Lucians are quiet. 300 foreign employees. How did they get work permits? Now let me tell you how people get work permit. You have to advertise that you're looking for workers. So when Reno tried to pull a fast one by telling our political leader he's looking for 300 workers, Pierson Bavle travaille by Reno. Now I've always said I have a responsibility. So I will not say what the people are telling me, but Reno know why people don't want to work for him. Okay? Now, if you need 300 workers outside of St. Lucia, why didn't you take the 300 people that you already bring in from outside and put them on the outside job? Why you want to displace 300 St. Lucians from their wife, their girlfriend, their family, their loved ones, and send them overseas and take people from overseas and bring them here? That making sense? Now let me tell you, Reno did not do that by himself. The government is the facilitator of this happening. Who issues work permits? You understand what is happening? So, and Labour Party has a track record. You remember what happened to the Lombards University? And what happened to the students? Now I want to tell you something. And I want to give the people, the young people of St. Lucia, I want to give you the assurance. While I was in government, we were in the process of starting an operating school for heavy equipment. Identify a piece of land, buy a certain, the investors would buy, and local investors. Because it's one thing, they can accuse Guy Joseph of everything they want. Everything Guy Joseph has done, he has pushed local people forward. My ministry, economic development, ran 113 projects. All went out for tender. And every single one of them was won by a local contractor. You know what Labour Party said? We made bubble. That's why it's only local contractors that get the job. Because some of their Chinese friends were tendering and they didn't get the job. And they couldn't understand why their Chinese friends didn't get the job. You know what they did? They reported us to the World Bank. And they had the World Bank come and carry out an investigation in St. Lucia. And they investigated a consultant that did not even get the job. Did you hear me? They said there was a bubble with a consultant, but the consultant tender was not accepted and he didn't get the job. You see what I'm saying to you? Labour Party perpetuates crime. They facilitate crime. And they push people in the direction of committing crime. So, I want to tell you, under a UWP government, we are going to train equipment operators. We are going to train truck drivers. We are going to train plumbers, masons, carpenters. We are going to train tilers. We are going to train masons. We will give our young men who are involved in crime an opportunity to be gainfully employed. We are going to strengthen the apprenticeship program to place these young people, whether they have been to Bodiley or boys training school or wherever they are. The state has a responsibility to help rehabilitate our young men. And unless a government takes this matter serious, we are in trouble. And I'm not just speaking. My political leader is here. We had negotiated $6 million from the European Union. And that money was approved and the Labour Party received that money. That money was to be used for training programs throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia. And I can tell you in Odsa, the Odsa Community Center we built was outfitted with a proper kitchen because we were going to be training people in the culinary arts at that place there to cook and to bake and to do different things. And then you would have a major restaurant for catering right there in Odsa. And that was to be financed through that money we had raised from the EU. We don't know what has happened. In fact, the last inquiry that I made was that we were on the verge of losing some of that money. Grant money, you know, not alone. Because the government could not utilize the money within the time frame. Can you believe that? So I know that UWP has a clear plan. We need to train more nurses. There's a demand for nurses globally. And most of our qualified nurses are living in St. Lucia. But that should not be a problem if we had trained sufficient nurses over the years. And we have the ability to do so. I will close on this point. When a government as clueless as the Labour Party will decide to make a former politician the head of OKEU, Damian Greaves, to head CEO of OKEU, Now let me tell you something. Because a man has a PhD, hospital administration is a special skill. So Labour Party is politicizing every major institution in this country. So can you imagine if I fall sick, or the leader of the opposition falls sick, or my colleague, Dominic or Spider, if one of us falls sick and we have to go, and is Damian Greaves that in charge of the hospital we're in? People, do not underestimate this thing, you know. There are certain things that you do not put in the hands of politicians. And our healthcare, already you have a minister of health who is a disaster. And Damian himself, was he minister of health at one time? He was a big disaster. Health never got better under him. Now, so because he was teaching at a university, you take him and you want to put him in charge of our hospital? A hospital with so many problems? St. Lucia, I am calling upon you as I close. We have to save our country. This country does not belong to Philip J. Pierre and the St. Lucia Labour Party. This country belongs to all of us. Let us do what it takes to save our country from the ruin that it is being brought into by the St. Lucia Labour Party. I thank you and good night.
Thank you very much. Always comprehensive as always. Ladies and gentlemen, we are nearing the end, but I have to say this. We need a government with a plan. We need a government with a leader who knows how to implement plans. And we need a party with a team of men and women who can work with that leader to make that plan come to fruition. And let me give you one example why I'm saying so. While we were in office between 2016 and 2021, Stephenson King was the Minister of Infrastructure. And we did such a job when it came to road repairs, road rehabilitation, and road construction. I can speak for Grosile. I was the parliamentary representative for Grosile. In Grosile alone, we built more than 70 roads in that one constituency. And in every constituency in St. Lucia, we had several roads that were built. Okay? So much so that you remember Philip and his Labour Party told you people don't eat roads. Today, the same Stephenson King is still Minister of Infrastructure, but this time under the St. Lucia Labour Party. We left a road that was under construction more than 3 years ago, the Millennium Highway and the roundabout. And up to now, up to today, they cannot finish that road yet. So what is the difference? You have the same Stephenson King. Don't you see the difference is between leadership and the party? That is the point I want to make to you. And the same Stephenson King, I mean, you think under UWP government, you would find what happened down the road there by SNS. If Stephenson King was... Now, I mean, you're all laughing. That's not a joke. It's an embarrassment, not a joke. I have a friend, a St. Lucian friend of mine, okay, visited St. Lucia after a little while. And we're driving up the road, and he came across the roundabout. So he's asking me, what is that? I said, a roundabout. So he said, who's the Minister of Infrastructure? I said, Stephenson King. He said, well, that roundabout is as useless as the minister. I said, no. The minister more useful than that roundabout. If you put Steve Davis' big belly in form a better roundabout. You know? So, the point I'm making to you, ladies and gentlemen, the point I'm making to you is the party, the team, and the leader makes a difference. And so, all parties, guy, are not the same. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you tonight that the party is the United Workers' Party. But for the United Workers' Party to work and work well, we need a team. I have presented you some of the members of that team. But for that team to function properly and to perform optimally, you need a good leader. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's do away with the waste of time that we have, that we call a prime minister. Let's get a real prime minister in place. We are not going according to bluffs. We are not accepting lies. We are not taking promises. We are going according to track record. In effect, the UWP had 3 years because COVID took away 2. The SLP has had 3 years and counting. So you can compare the performances. So tonight, I ask you to compare, to contrast, and to make a choice. I know you have made the choice. The only choice is the United Workers' Party. And the only leader that can do the job that is required, especially with the disaster that we face now, I will present him to you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet. I invite him to address you.
Good night, everyone. You know, I told Dominic, I said, boss, you're getting me to come out tonight. And Darren and the Kings are performing. Wow. But I mean, I'm so happy to see that Guyana's all out for 138. So I think we have to score 138 for 8 in the 20 over. So look, I expect the same way I know that we're going to win the next election, I expect the Kings to win tonight. You know, Spider, sometimes you let things slip. I'm trying to remember when we had the budget. Y'all remember? And the promise that this was supposed to be the year of? Oh, y'all remember? Yeah. The year of infrastructure. I don't even have to say anything more. But that is what tells the story of the Labour Party. Talk. Always have a big thing to do. Right? Propaganda. The best at this, the best at that. And by the time you turn around, nothing. We don't have to go too far back in history, though. You remember? Better days. Jobs. Right? 100 million. And all we ever get is cost overruns and bobble. All the time. But I have to say that for those people who were not fooled by labor, that not even them would have expected things to be as bad as they are today. It is no exaggeration to say that we are in trouble. We all know it. We can all see it. Don't take solutions for fools. Sometimes I hear people say, oh, the solutions were fooled. Solutions were not fooled. Some solutions were greedy. And they saw how good things were going and thought that we could give more. Instead of the Labour Party recognizing what we had been achieving in the 5 years, and when they talk about unity in a time of difficulty, what would be more difficult than COVID? You forget, we formed NEMAC. No decision for COVID was made without a meeting with NEMAC. And not an ordinary meeting, not where people sit down on their hands and just listen. Changes were made right there. And the Attorney General's office was taking notes. And by that evening, when the SI came out, reflected the decisions that were being made at the NEMAC. When we realized that we were alone and we had to put together a social and economic plan for recovery of this country, we invited the opposition to come and sit at the table with us. They came to the first meeting. They never came back again. I never forget the first NEMAC meeting. I don't know if you remember it, Dominic. And Sean Edwards came to represent the Prime Minister. And after he heard the presentation by the CMO and the group of people there, he said, world class. They never sent him back again. But instead of appreciating what we were achieving, they went on a propaganda game to convince people that the money that we were using to fix up the roads was the money that the World Bank and the IMF gave us. That's not true. That money went to pay the salaries of the civil servants. And don't forget, I asked the civil servants to be part of the recovery and to forgo part of their salary for 1 year. A part. Not to give it to us, to lend it to the people of St. Lucia. And we were willing to pay an interest rate, I think it was 4.5%, and if my memory serves me correct, tax-free. They said no. Did I get vexed? Did United Workers' Party get vexed and decide they're going to be revenge on people? We came up and we said, okay, we'll figure out a different way. And we went to 3 of the largest construction companies, and one of them was Renault, and asked them to do DFCs, design, finance, construct. They design it, they finance it, they construct it, but always through the government. And we asked them to give us a loan for 5 years with a moratorium of 2 years. A moratorium means that we don't start paying back the principal for 2 years. And we figured that by that time, the economy would be coming back and we'd be in a better position. But the Labour Party went out and said that we did that to put money in our pockets. But the thousands of people that were employed building roads, building drains, everything that was going on in this country, that ching, ching, ching was not going into Alan Chastanet's or United Workers' Party. It went into their pocket. Guy Joseph is a hero. His ministry worked hours with the World Bank to make sure that all of the loans that we had there, we said to them we could not bring foreign contractors to St. Lucia. Bring down the size of the contract small enough so that the work can go to the St. Lucians and we can put the country back to work right away. They did it, whether it was for Victoria Hospital, for all the drains that were done around the country. Everywhere we were putting people to work. But the Labour Party went and said to everybody that we did that to help ourselves. When we knew that people were struggling and we knew the farmers were struggling, we put a program that we bought the produce from the farmers. We went to the hotels that were closed and opened up the kitchens to cook food and bring it to the people to their homes. All of that to do what? Create jobs and to help the vulnerable people in our country. When people don't agree with United Workers' Party, we don't get vexed. We don't get angry. We find alternative ways to achieve the same thing that we were going to do. I feel sorry for the young men in Vieux Fort who were so excited about having a horse racing track. And to be able to have a career, a professional career, in something that they loved. I was there when the last 10 of them left, that were living at DSH because they loved their horses so much. And to see the horses go, and to see the whole thing close down. And the Labour Party would still want to convince people that there was something wrong with what the project was doing. A Labour Party wants to still convince us that moving back into the old building of St. Jude's instead of the modern building is progress. It's too late. All of us concede for ourselves. It was more than chemical and more than paint. The building was babo. Just like the prime minister we have, babo. $265 million. And we listen to that. And we say and we do nothing. Guy said it. Who do you think is going to repay that loan? I want to put it in perspective. The new building plus all the nonsense they did before came to $260 million. Okay? You're going to now do a halls of justice. I want us to understand this. Those of us who drive up north and see the old Daher Mall, I think they call it the Orange Crescent building. That building is 100,000 square feet. The 3 floors. It's like 33,000 square feet per floor. So I want you to pick up that building, okay? And put it now in Constitution Park. And add one more floor. That is the size of the halls of justice they put in there. Pardon. It cannot be. How does that make sense? And the building is going to cost, with the interest, 300 million EC dollars for a halls of justice. And we were building a police headquarters and the courts, 6 courts, for half that price. In fact, less than half the price. And it was going to be where the police headquarters is now. And you had the old Farron's Dairy entrance, you had the entrance by Brazil Street, and then you had the entrance and exit by by where Coca-Cola factory is. Ideal place. You don't even put it out to bid. We're going to wait for them to pile and for the damage to be done to our church. And if the Catholic Church does not want to speak for itself out loud, we will speak for them. No! Sapabo! We came to talk about crime. And that's why I love, and I tell you, I don't want my wife to get jealous, but every time I go into my constituency, I fall more and more in love with Micoud South. Honestly, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful constituency. And the people are so incredible. And I had an opportunity of sitting down with about 4 or 5 women. And they gave me a lesson. Yeah? And what they said was so right. Women in this country, which we know are the bosses, right? All us men know. We know who's in charge, right? The good thing is that we have very strong women, and they're very kind to their men. And it's only in the privacy of our room they remind us that they're the boss, right? But it reminded me that who is it that goes out to buy the groceries and run the household? Women. So who do you think is feeling the cost of living the most? And the stories of the difficult choices that they were having to make, of the food that they had to buy to keep the kids happy, to keep their husband happy. How difficult it was because the money was not getting bigger. In fact, the money, in their minds, they said, is getting smaller. But the prices are getting bigger. And every time they think it's going to stop, it only gets worse. And particularly as the kids grow a little bit older, the things they want to do is more. And how difficult it is to try to explain to them that they don't want them to go out. And they didn't have money to send them to go out. And certainly, how the conversation started was how difficult going back to school was this year for them. It was very, 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 very difficult. Yeah? And they, like a lot of other people, have had to say, I leave it to the Lord. Because I've done everything that I can do, and I'm only hoping that somebody from abroad or something happens to put a little extra money my way that I can tell my child, it came late, but it came. Women have a better appreciation for the need for proper health. They go to the doctor not because they're weaker, but it's because they are different. They go to the doctor a lot more than men do. So they know what's happening at the healthcare centers, and sadly they know what's going on at the hospitals. And it really is paining them. They don't want to fall sick. They don't want their children to fall sick. They don't want their relatives to fall sick. And it is creating anxiety. to know how bad our healthcare system was. And the one I probably should have known more, but they really gave me the message that when they see these young people dying, even though that those are not directly their children, but as mothers, the relationship that they have with their own children forces and compels them to feel that pain more. And they speak of other mothers that they know where their son or relative was killed, and every single time there's another murder, it's like they relive it again. And I know, I looked at these women and I applauded them because they were so strong, because I think that just one thing by itself may cause some people to break. And here it is, they're facing crime, unprecedented, healthcare, unprecedented, and cost of living, unprecedented. And they're having to manage all of those things. So I want to say not only to the women in my own constituency, but I want to say to all the women in St. Lucia, United Workers' Party feels you, we hear you, and the reason why I wrote the letter that I did to the Prime Minister demanding now, not asking anymore, but demanding that the fuel prices come down, demand that the 2.5% tax comes off, is for you. Is for you. And I want all of you to stay strong and know that you're not alone and you're not suffering in vain, but unite as Workers' Party. The men and women will stand by your side. And I'm hoping that it does not come after November 1st that we have to protest. But if we have to protest, we are going to protest with an energy that the Labour Party has never seen before. I had an opportunity also this weekend. I don't know what happened, and two very good friends of mine, well, one I did not know before and one I've known for a very long time, came to get some advice. And I had the opportunity of going back to Kayak on the Bay, and I want to say hello to the people there, a wonderful place. And we were trying to get the tour going so more people could go there. But I went to Mamaku Gardens, and I drove all the way to the back of Mamaku Gardens. In fact, in driving on that road, which is in very deplorable condition, I earned even a greater respect for Sir John. Because wherever you drive in this country is roads. You know? Roads, 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 roads. And a weight was lifted off my back because I remembered how much they criticized Sir John for the infrastructure in this country. But you see, that was always the difference between Sir John, United Workers' Party, and the Labour Party. Sir John believed in the infrastructure of water and roads and sewage and electricity and airports and seaports to expand the economic capacity of the country so that St. Lucians could earn a living to take care of themselves. Teach a man to fish instead of giving a man a fish. And there are many young people who would have never seen those roads when they were at their fullest. And I was driving on this road and all these little banana sheds. So you can imagine in the real day what was happening. Everybody was busy on their farm. That little shed was full of people. People felt productive. People felt like they were making a contribution. They felt like living was worth it. And that they had money in their pocket. Who doesn't forget the days of coming into Castries and coming all the way down the Mourne and seeing all of the little trucks, the far vehicles, piled up with bananas and young kids on the back, and everybody, and all the people making money on the side who were selling drinks and selling food, right? And everybody knew how well things were because of how many bananas were being exported. And more roads were being built, and more irrigation was being provided, and more communities were being developed. Because the lands in St. Lucia were productive, and the people of St. Lucia were working the lands. And they were going from being nothing, working on a plantation for a salary, all of a sudden to say, I own my own farm. I'm making my own money. I have my own van, because the van did not just carry bananas. The van carried the kids to school. It took the missus out on Sunday to go to church. We forget. But I bring that story up to understand that when we were developing village tourism, that is the model that we were using. We know how difficult it is for bananas to succeed today because of the competition. And we have to make the transition. And I'm so glad that Guy Joseph talked about it, that all people are the same. Oh, Chastanet, tourism. But in it, they're psychologically telling you that I prefer the big man. No, I know that we need the big man in order to allow the little man to succeed. But I know, not only from my own constituency, but going around this entire country, that St. Lucians are different than most other West Indians. St. Lucians want to work for themselves. That's what they want. Don't mind a little vendor. It's a small place, but guess what? It is her stall, her business. She can decide how many hours that she wants to work. And when she makes the money, she knows how much money she made. So village tourism was doing and was about to do exactly what Sir John did for the bananas. The road in Saltibus. It wasn't just because the people in Saltibus needed a good road. It's because we see Airbnbs being expanded. And so all those persons that used to be in the agricultural sector in Saltibus now have to find something else to do. And the road now made it possible for those little businesses to thrive. And I remember there was a lady, she's a very famous lady, St. Lucian. And she used to love it because her guests came, and instead of going to restaurants around the place, she organized for them to go and eat at a different person's home every different night. Tourists loved it. They love it. We don't even appreciate how beautiful of a people we are. We sometimes forget how beautiful St. Lucia is. And sitting in the backyard underneath a breadfruit tree, roasting breadfruit. You think you can do that in Brooklyn? The fireman will come and arrest you one time. We have a life here that's great, but it's for us to develop that life and to improve that life. So village tourism wasn't just the roads, it was the water and the electricity, and it was fixing up our villages to make it easier for people to do their business. Is to provide the accounting system, to provide the platform for marketing. That's no different than what Sir John did. You had Winera that was producing the boxes. You had Windman that was doing the research. You had Geese that was carrying the boats. You had Windfresh that was ripening the bananas over there. We had the research being done. Incentives for you to get your FAR vehicle, an agriculture place to go and buy all of your equipment and get credit. The development bank to help you. It didn't happen by accident. And it's when Labour Party decided that in order to win the election, they had to destroy the banana sector. And they use the oldest trick in the world. Greed. Let's call it what it is. Greed. And said Sir John was not giving you enough. So John was taken away. You could get a better price. But nobody was calculating in their mind how much money the roads cost. Nobody was calculating the subsidy on the fertilizer. Nobody was calculating how much the government was losing and having to let the cars come in duty-free. Nobody was taking into consideration the agricultural stations that were giving credit and the banana farmers who were not paying back the money. Who paid that bill? But the people were promised that if you did it yourself, you would make more money. That's what labor does. They play on our weakness. And the moment things get good, we get weak. But don't get vexed. That's sadly who we are. That's why I always tell the story of Adam and Eve. Where were they? The Garden of Eden. And a snake came and told them, eat this, and your life is going to get better. Doesn't the Bible tell you that they had everything? They had everything. They had it so good they walked around naked. Yes? And even Adam and Eve were convinced. So we must understand that about ourselves. We must confront that about ourselves. And accept that about ourselves. And we must become stronger for it. That's why I said before the elections, it wasn't like I don't want to say I'm a prophet. I said to the people in my party that the Labour Party was planting the seeds of doubt. That's what that is. I see the same thing taking place now with the Citizenship by Investment program. And I know that St. Lucians, and some of them don't want to know. I'd rather them say that. But what do they tell you instead? I don't understand. I'm hearing so many different stories. I don't know. My fellow St. Lucians, this is not a complicated issue. What the government of St. Lucia is selling is our citizenship. So it's real money. And we don't feel it because many of the people they're selling our citizenship to are not coming to St. Lucia. So it's invisible. So we don't feel the immediate impact. Okay, what's the big deal? But the big deal is if the numbers are right, and I want to put this correct, because when people, Guy, you hit the nail on the head. When people say both sides are the same, but you all did it, right? Oh, you all did it. Put it in perspective. In the 5 years that United Workers' Party was in government, we issued 850 citizenships. You listening to me? In 5 years, 850. Right now, the numbers are suggesting that in 2.5 years, the Labour Party is going to issue 50,000 citizenships. So how can it be the same? And I'm saying to you, as your former Prime Minister, that we struggled to do all the due diligence in 3 or 4 months. And we were struggling in printing the passports. So imagine 50,000. So that's 50,000 people that if tomorrow something happens in their country, they have the authority to pack up their bags and move to St. Lucia and to be and have all the rights, including voting, like all St. Lucians. So you may not feel it today, but it's a debt that we have. It's an obligation that we have. And this is serious. Now, what makes this thing so egregious? Egregious means so vexing, so wrong. Is that many people refer to citizenship as our patrimony. It's ours. So how can a government come in and sell these things and do contracts and not tell us anything? We don't know how many files. We don't know how many have been approved. We don't know how much money is there. We know nothing. Well, when people tell you, I don't understand, I don't know what is the difficulty in understanding so far what I'm saying. Because by the law, they're supposed to tell us. By the law, the CIP unit was supposed to produce an annual report. It has not produced an annual report for 3 years, and we say nothing. The law says it's supposed to be sold for $100,000, and yet we don't know. There's supposed to be an escrow account. It's our escrow account. When the minister comes and says, oh, the money doesn't belong to us, that's a lie. That's not true. We are letting them use the money to build a hotel in St. Lucia. We must expect we're going to get value for our money. It cannot be that it costs 3 times the amount of money to build a hotel, because you have to ask yourself, where's the rest of the money going? You have an obligation to ask that question. Anybody who belittles you and denies you to know that information, they themselves are corrupt. They're lying to you. So this latest revelation that the government entered into an agreement with a company called BMAX. The first time that St. Lucians were told about BMAX was in September of this year. Up until now, we never knew the company existed. We knew nothing. And we found out about it because they put out a statute instrument, and they made the statute instrument retroactive to January. And up to now, they cannot explain to us why. And then on Monday of this past week, a story came out to say that the directors, the owners of BMAX, were arrested in Montenegro. They were arrested in February. And they showed a video of them in the handcuffs going up. And they spent up until April in prison. And then they were released on bond for $1.2 million. And they're expected to come back and report every week as to what's going on. Now, this company, according to the SI, is going to operate just like Galaxy. The government of St. Lucia is going to give them thousands of passports to sell and collect all the money. I'm going to repeat that again. The government of St. Lucia has made them a developer, and as such, they have permission to sell thousands of passports and to collect the money. We don't know how many thousands. We don't know how much the housing project is going to cost. We know nothing, but what we do know is that the prosecutor in Montenegro, and Montenegro is Eastern Europe, right next to Russia, said that BMAX is a criminal organization. And when they asked the minister, he said, well, I only just saw it today. I don't know. I'm going to have to go after. That's on Monday. Monday. and all of his zelevs, let's use the language you know. We all have zelevs. His zelevs are out there saying, oh, the guy is only a director, he's not a shareholder. That's what you think we need to hear? We need to hear that the government has terminated the relationship with BMAX and to give us a report as to how many passports they have sold and that those passports should be canceled immediately. How you can be in St. Lucia and don't want to go after young people who you are forcing into a life of crime and you want to hold them accountable, and meanwhile you are doing business with a criminal organization and you're giving them thousands of passports, no accountability in the money, and we're supposed to sit here quiet and take that? Our country is in trouble because we have a government that is acting like a gang and that is a law by themselves. And when we allow things to happen that undermines our democracy, we are all at fault. Guy made a very simple point. I don't want it to be missed. Damien Greaves is a politician. And he is now going to be the CEO of OKEU. How are you, a known Flambeau, going to feel comfortable going to the hospital? We have the acting Chief Justice of the OECS courts is who? Mario Michel, who is what? A former politician. And we're supposed to have an independence between the courts and the politicians? And we say nothing. We all go in our room and say, boy, that's not a good thing, you know, boy. Oh. That's not good enough. So I'm here to tell all of us tonight that come November 1st, if the price of gas has not gone down below $14, if the 2.5% levy is not taken off the backs of the women of this country, and if we don't see that the CEO of the CIP unit, who has still not accounted to the people of St. Lucia as to what happened in Washington, D.C., and why he's doing what he's doing, and to provide the reports, he must be fired by November 1st. The entire board must be removed. And the minister of CIP must be fired. This man cannot be put near any money. He cannot be given any discretionary decisions or authority because he has been acting, and his history has been that he's been acting as a fraud. I say that clearly. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Ernest Hilaire is a fraud. What he did with the Range Rover, what he did with the Jufali account, and what he is doing in CIP, he must go. My last message to all of us is when we think that because of crime that we're in trouble, when we think of the state of healthcare that we're in trouble, and when we think of the cost of living that we're in trouble, there's another thing that's looming here. The government of St. Lucia is mismanaging the resources of this country. Do not take lightly what has happened with GPH. 440 million, which is almost, 2 billion EC dollars. Don't take it for light, the $80 million that the NLA has got, and there's been no accountability as to where that money has gone, and that the young people of this country, that $800,000 a month has been taken away from them. That's for the next 15 years. $800,000 a month is what that loan is going to cost us. We see what's taking place at St. Jude, the $265 million loan. Over 300 foreign workers working at St. Jude. We see what's taking place with CIP. And millions of dollars are being misplaced. And some of it we may have to pay back. I don't know. I don't know how bad it is. But here's what the problem is with the situation in the Middle East, with the situation in Ukraine, the strike that is on the verge to happen with the stevedores in the East Coast. And that's a serious thing. The stevedores in the East Coast of the United States of America want their wage to be increased by 3 times the amount, right? Which is to catch up with what the West Coast is. So this is a real issue. And they know they have power because they know that if they go on strike, as big as America is, it will cripple America, far less us. So what I'm saying to us is that since this Labour Party government has come into office, all of the expenses are going up. And because of the plan we left them, there was an immediate increase of revenue to them, but they have done nothing since to make any changes. Look at it for yourself. Agriculture is gone. Manufacturing is not moving. We see more hotels being closed in the last year than we've seen in the last 20 years. People are struggling. Small businesses are beginning to close down in this country. And so the only thing that this government knows how to fix that problem is to increase taxes. And that's where United Workers' Party is different. We came in, we reduced the VAT. And if we had been elected, we would have reduced the VAT again to 10%. But this Labour Party, they don't care about us. The plan that they had was to take care of themselves. They only gave you a story for you to believe that they were putting you first. The only people that come first in the Labour Party are the comrades. That's all. And we've all seen that story, and that's why we don't want to become socialists. We don't want to become communists. We want to believe in what Sir John wanted. We wanted a government that would invest in infrastructure in this country and to make sure that the people could work for themselves and that government was not wasting money. That is what we have to go back to. And Guy is right. The Honorable Guy Joseph. Is your party is not only taking the fight to the Labour Party on the streets now, and we're taking the fight to them in the courts, but we are preparing to fix up the mess that they've created in St. Lucia. Thank you. Let's stay tuned. Let's stay focused. And let's get ready to march against this government.
Thank you so much, next Prime Minister of this country. We're going to take the fight to the courts, we're going to take the fight to the street, and then we'll take the fight to the ballot box. Labour must go, because what they are doing to us in St. Lucia in terms of cost of living, ça pas bon. We have to get rid of Labour because ça pas bon. We must get rid of Philippe J. Pierre, Pascal. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to appreciate greatly those of you who are here tonight, who came out. I appreciate greatly those who are watching us on live stream. Again, I salute those of you in the diaspora who are always with us, showing that you're concerned about what is happening in your homeland. And let me just say before we leave tonight, keep tuning in to the United Workers' Party, where you hear the truth and you see the light. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night, please join me on Like It Is, the newest talk show on the block. And you will hear more. On Tuesday, join us around 10 for a news brief. On Thursday morning, join Nancy Charles for Meet the Opposition. Thursday night, round table. And Sunday, we're back at them again with Flambeau Live. But I just want to make another announcement before I close. I want to invite every one of you here to a big community night. And that is on Saturday, the 26th of October. And I just want you to know that as of now, tickets are available. You can get at the secretariat, you can get from different people, but buy yours from Barbara. So there are many people with tickets on sale, and the tickets are only $100 because in this fight, you know, there's a saying in Creole, c'est l'argent qui va faire cheval courir. Money makes the horse run. So we need to raise some funds because we have to keep at them. We have to keep going. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your concern. Thank you for your interest in your country. Thank you for standing up for St. Lucia and our future. I want to wish you a very good night and get home safely. Thank you very much.